Hello and welcome to this Q&A session, which we are doing as part of the MiraBan UK Film Awards Festival. All of this week we are talking to some of the shortlisted finalists, some of the directors, producers, actors who are in the final selection of films and film scripts. So today we're talking about one of the scripts which is nominated for Best Film Script, and it is called Veil, and it is by Peter Hardy, who is across in the US there. Hello to you, Peter.
Hi.
And you're in Atlanta, Georgia, I think you said.
Yes, Atlanta, Georgia. I've lived here for over 30 years now.
Fantastic. And we also have with us Jay MiraBan, who is Manari, who is our festival director, similar words, and also Luca Paci, who is our juror in this category. So welcome to both of you.
Hello.
Hello.
So if I can ask, first of all, Peter, for people who nobody will have read your script, generally what's it about?
Oh, gosh. Well, it's kind of a dream story. It begins at a certain point and then it ends at another point, and so it's not exactly a easily synopsizable script, but it's you have a young man who's involved in some kind of a sexual relationship with a woman who's a little older to him, and he doesn't really know what she's about or what her story is or why she wants to have the kind of relationship that they're having, and he follows her and things get kind of weird. They
definitely do. So Luca, what would you add to that?
Well, I read somewhere that your script was kind of Lynch-esque, kind of David Lynch, it had a kind of David Lynch like atmosphere. Would you agree with that, Peter?
Yes, that wasn't something that I was thinking about. Someone sort of pointed that out to me, or made that observation sometime after I had first written it, and I said, oh well, that's probably true, because actually I've written other things that people compared to him, so that seems to be some kind of an influence. A completely random person who didn't even know I was a writer or anything once said, has anyone ever told you look like David Lynch? And I said, actually, yes, they have.
Yes, it's true.
Yes. Big head of hair, doesn't he? Go on, Luca.
Yeah.
Just one thing. The other reference I picked, I think, is William Burroughs, The Soft Machine, for example. I don't know if you are familiar with Burroughs.
Not really. I've seen the film, Cronenberg's film of The Naked Lunch. So, yeah.
I think there's a kind of he uses his kind of prose poetry in the same kind of outrageous sometimes way, and but it creates this kind of really kind of strange atmosphere. It's kind of spooky and unsettling.
Yes, it's certainly surrealistic. Yes,
it definitely is. What did you think, Jay?
I was thinking, I remember reading the director's statement, and he mentioned also Somerset Maugham as an inspiration, the playwright, and he's also a short story writer. I was thinking of Painted Veil, who he wrote, and I thought maybe the title might have been an inspiration from one of those books.
Yes, I was thinking. I don't know. Inspiration is an unusual thing. I found myself thinking of Somerset Maugham while writing it, because there are references to one of his novels of human bondage in the film, and that began to just sort of expand, and yes, sort of indirectly, the title Veil came from me thinking of the Painted Veil. That's probably too elaborate to try and describe it. I don't know how interesting it would be to other people, but it just seemed like a good title once it came to me.
And what I thought when I was reading it was, because some characters then watched themselves later on doing something that they were doing earlier on, and thinking that you have to, how to film it, in that you have to remember you need them walking down the street from 3 different angles or different angles. So, they can be different from each other. So that would be something that a director and a DOP would have to work out, I guess.
Yes, there's certainly, I don't think it would be an incredibly hard film to shoot, but it would not be simple. So there's
And
did you
Go ahead,
propose
Jay.
it to any director producer already to
If
make
I
it?
said-
Did you
if I
propose
said
it already to any director or producer?
No, I don't really know how one does that, actually. I've submitted to a lot of film festivals, and it's won some awards, but no one said, hey, we want to make it. So I'm sort of in the process of talking to an agent about maybe, having someone. 'Cause I pretty much what I've heard is that if you if a writer sends their own stuff out, no one pays attention to it.
Yes, it needs to go through the filter of an agent who
Yes.
says this is actually good. And actually, for people who don't know you, Peter, I mean, are you mostly a writer? Do you do novels? Do you only do screenwriting? What do you do?
Well, I've been working in theater for most of my life. I've actually been writing plays for some 30 years. And I also act and direct. I produce I'm the artistic director of the theater in Atlanta that produces new plays by Georgia playwrights. But writing has always been the thing I most cared about. And sort of the short version is I avoided writing screenplays for most of like half my life because I'm not sure why. I sort of had reasons why that wouldn't be a good idea. Part of it was because thinking, well, I wouldn't know how to break into that, and I know what to do with theater. I now, once I started writing screenplays, I got immediately good reception to it, and I really enjoyed it. And I think I was mostly just trying to stop myself from being happy.
Okay, yes,
Okay, that makes perfect sense.
And I'm much like I say, as soon as I started sending my screenplays out, I started getting a very good reception to them from film festivals, which isn't the same as actually getting things made. And I'm also looking at the possibilities of starting to make my own films, although Vail would be a little beyond my capabilities at this point.
Yeah, you could be a producer, couldn't you, and get a director in, because and actually, I suppose if you've worked for theatre, you've already in the mode of some of the story is told by action, not necessarily by text telling you what's happening or what people are thinking. Yeah.
Well, this is also a very relatively short script, so it may be feasible as a first-time filmmaker as well if you want to direct it maybe and have someone who has knowledge of a producer to allow you to have much more control on the script, because one thing that happens normally from obviously script writing to actual producing, there is something lost. This is not something because someone didn't do properly their job. It's just a transliteration of from one media to another. It's just going to change partially. And so you have to find someone you trust, not only someone who's good, but someone who is similar to you. Like he has the same vision as close as possible, because obviously the same exact is impossible, but someone who really can understand what you see with your eyes, basically. So it's a little bit of a scouting process, but definitely it's a very feasible and doable script. So I think you shouldn't have any problem to find someone to help you with that.
Yeah, probably the most difficult things about it is that there are scenes set in public places that would take some arranging to make that happen. There's also people are seeing themselves up on the screen of a movie theater, so that would take a bit of doing, but I don't think it's out of reach. I wrote my first short screenplay. I wrote in the early 1980s. I shot it myself on videotape, and then I decided that because film equipment at that time was so expensive and cumbersome, and I'm not really a technological person anyway, I said this would be too hard for me to get into, so I'm not going to try and do it. That was a big rationale I had for not writing for screenplays, and it's now been becoming clear to me for a while that the technological side of things has become much more accessible and much easier for, everyday people to access. And so that's why I'm getting into it. And that script, which I wrote 40 years ago, I rewrote it from memory because I didn't have a record of it.
Yeah.
I had lost the videotape version of it, although that came back to me.
Did it?
I got a hold of the guy who shot it with me and got a copy of it after not having seen it for 40 years. But anyway, I rewrote the script from memory, which is pretty simple. There's almost no dialogue in it, and I've submitted it to festivals, and it's won several awards.
So I see. And also you say about actually filming it yourself. I think, it's horses for courses. If you enjoy the writing and you don't enjoy the lighting, there are people who only want to do the lighting and they live and breathe lighting, and that's what they want to do. So you get the right people to do the right things, don't you?
I'm in the process of trying to make contact with people like that. I have a real fear of, taking advantage of people or exploiting people. So if people are going to do stuff for me, I want to make sure they really want to do it and not, feeling they've been coerced in some way.
Definitely. Yes. I actually have a question about your writing process. Like, you said you record yourself. You were acting, or you just had like a flow of thoughts and you just wanted to have it recorded and then you transcribed it on paper? How does it work for you when you have, let's say, a sudden idea, but let's say your mind goes faster than your hands?
I mostly write things down. I mean, when I was talking about recording before, that was a videotape recording that I made of that particular film script. But I tend to write notes and then flesh them out. Sometimes if I'm walking or sometimes I'll speak into a handheld recorder. But transcribing notes from a recorder is so tedious that it's like, I find it's better just go ahead and write it, in a scrawl in a notebook to begin with.
And you can get AI that will do that for you now, but then it comes out with so many mistakes and bizarre translations. Don't bother with it yet.
What do you think of it, Luca?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I was just wondering, because the script is quite short, but it's very tight, and we get an idea very quickly about the atmosphere and the sort of like the unease. I was wondering what is there any kind of theme and any kind of obsession that you're trying to analyze in this script?
Well, I wrote it very instinctually. I actually took a little fragment from a play that I wrote and just said, okay, let's spin this off in a different direction. And then I just kind of followed it. But so there wasn't anything, I wasn't thinking about anything in terms of theme or whatever while I was writing it, but looking back on it, it seems to be, it's about someone, this young man who's in this kind of troubled, disturbing relationship, which is where of human bondage by Somerset Maugham reference comes in, because that book has very much about a relationship like that. He has this sort of disturbing relationship, and he's trying to find out what's going on, and instead it's like it sort of spins them both. I mean, there's the older man in it, who's, I think, like an older version of the young man.
Possibly him as an older man, yes. Yeah. It's sort of time slips, isn't it?
Yeah. And you also see him, with the younger woman that he meets at the movie theater. But it's like he's with her, but he's still, the shadow of this other relationship is still there. Mm-hmm. So those, that's, like I said, that's not a coherent theme, but that's it's more of a dream logic, I would say.
Sort of playing with perception, isn't it, and viewpoint. And actually, would you say you're an avid film watcher or a playgoer, a theatre goer, or a reader of novels? What would you say?
Well, certainly, I've been seeing theater and working in theater for most of my life. My parents worked in theater, so I grew up around that. I'm very big into film. As I said, I spent quite a few decades avoiding working in film, which was the main thing I loved the most, which is where I think the self-sabotage element of all that came in. But no, I'm very much, I found it very easy once I started applying myself to writing, trying to write for film. It came to me very easily just because I've watched hundreds and hundreds and thousands of films. So I think that way fairly easily. And several of the scripts I wrote had almost no dialogue because I was consciously trying to tell the story visually as much as possible.
Would you say you're not a big dialogue? You're not. Do you write down snippets of dialogue when you hear conversations?
Well, I actually think I'm a very good dialogue writer in my plays, but film is something different.
Yeah, and actually, they do say writers shouldn't direct their own pieces, don't they? The writers shouldn't be on set because there's like, oh, that's not how I imagined it. Don't you have to hand it over to the director and then they move it on?
Well, it seems to me that once I started like going, looking into the film festivals where my work was selected or whatever. I haven't been able to attend most of them except like this. There have been a few here in Atlanta. But what I found is that short films are almost always made by the people who wrote them.
Yes.
It's very common, yes.
Directors do not seem to be looking for someone else's script to direct. In a lot of cases, I think they do better to find a writer because they're not always very well written.
Except yours.
Well, that's so that's why. So I am interested in trying to figure out how to make my own. I don't really have ambitions to direct features, unless things changed a whole lot and things got a lot easier.
I think you're gonna have to have the first experience of someone else directing your script, and probably you'll change your mind, because that's one reason people tend. If you have the capacity, if you have the knowledge of directing, and you have the experience, you have to start somewhere. But if you have the experience and you know how to write for the camera, and that's gonna be different, and then you can direct it, and it's gonna be a good script for the camera. But it depends on how much you are attached to keep it as much as you wrote it, or if you are happy for the director to has his own vision of it, which changes it completely.
I think another reason that I hesitated to write for a film for so long was that I heard so much that, they're not going to do the script you wrote. So a part of me was, do I really want to,
Unless you can have a clause that they're not allowed to change things. Although they can add things, don't they? Because when you see the finished film, there'll be things that aren't on the page.
Yeah.
Sequences.
I seriously don't know how I will feel about that if it ever happens. So I'll just have to see.
Well, good luck with that, honestly.
We
Final
look
word
forward to know in the future.
Yeah. Luca, would you like a final word or a final question?
Yeah, it's interesting. You're saying. I think it's very much a kind of work in progress. What you're doing, which is great, and you're open to different kinds of suggestions, which is, I think. Would you say that this character, in a way, is a projection of yourself somehow, or?
Sure.
Part of yourself?
Yeah.
Two beautiful women on the go at the same time.
In
Why
my
not?
mind, yes.
Why not?
Yeah.
No, yeah. I tend to write. Most of the things I write tend to come out of something within myself, which I guess is true of most writers. I'm trying to open myself up to having a little more range. Of experience that I deal with, but certainly, it comes from within my own fevered imagination.
And if they said to you, it sounds like the first 15 minutes of a feature film, have you got the rest of the story in your head? Could you take it further?
Actually, no. I mean, again, that's something I might deal with at some point with some of the short scripts I've written. But to me, they're all complete. But there's a difference between a short story and a novel.
Yes, absolutely. There's a different feel, isn't there? Yeah.
Well, and it's I mean, something that happens. I mean, I deal with new plays a lot, and people will write a really good one-act play, and people say, "Oh, I want to see more. I want it to be a full-length play." And it's like, no, if it's something that's really good as a one-act,
leave it as a one act. Yes, that it works. Yes, exactly.
That's great. Actually, writing shorts is more difficult than writing long. So there's this famous quote, I think Luca might help me with, who is from, that says, I didn't have the time to write you a short letter, so I wrote a long one. I think it should be Voltaire, but help me with that. Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, trimming and editing it down to just the essentials. Yeah, get rid of the stuff.
I think writing short screenplays is really easy.
Okay.
No, it's not. That's what I said. It's the opposite. It's much more difficult to be concise than actually writing something longer.
You're making it look too easy, Peter.
Well, that's just been my experience. It's like, I mean, a longer arc of the story just is a lot more. And people say with plays that a 3-act play isn't 3 times more difficult to write than a 1-act. It's 9 times more difficult.
Yeah, you've got to sustain the interest, haven't you? Yes. Not just keep going at the same pace.
It builds in lots of ways.
Got to have light and shade, changes of pace and things, haven't you? Yes. Fantastic. I'm just looking at the time. What do you think, Jay? Are we starting to wind up, would you say?
We have to wrap it up because we have another live stream just 10 minutes away, so we have to say goodbye to Peter, but it's been a real pleasure to meeting you, and thank you to Luca and Sarah, of course. If you have this final word to say goodbye and remind our audience of tomorrow, finally.
Yes, tomorrow the winners are going to be announced, so you will find out then, Peter. The awards ceremony is actually in South London at the World Cinema, which is near Brixton, if you've heard of it, and we're going to be screening a lot of the finalists, I think all of the finalists, and then announcing the winners
that are part of 2 categories and the winners. This is our code for this one. We're going to announce at the end who's going to be the Best Film Audience Award.
Yeah, we've got the special envelopes, haven't we? The gold envelopes?
Yes, we do. We have the envelopes, of course.
And what is that? That will be what time? UK time?
7 p.m.
That's when the ceremony starts. The winners are getting announced about 11, aren't they?
Well, they'll get announced throughout the evening, and then, of course, we will have highlights, and you will have the chance to see the virtual version of the festival as well. So it will be published afterwards, so everyone will be able to enjoy.
Fantastic. Good luck.
Okay, thank you
Fingers
so much.
Crossed.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Bye from us.